What is up, everyone? We are back with another episode of Smoke and Meteoras, the podcast where we talk about the moments that matter and the struggle the talents face on the rise. I am your host, Marissa, and this week I am joined by none other than Johnny Pierce. How you doing today, dude?
I'm doing great. Just got back from work and happy to come on to Smoke and Meteoras and talk on the podcast with you, Marissa. How are you doing today?
Doing pretty good. Nice, relaxing day. No work. Just chilled, hung out in my boyfriend's room all day.
That's awesome.
All right, so let's just hop right on in. I always ask everybody the same question to start this out, and that question is,
What's the stupidest thing you've done in pro wrestling?
Yep, you watched the product.
I got prepared for this one, and here's my answer. Some years ago, I was driving back home late at night from a training class, and I may have dozed off behind the wheel, and there were some traffic cones stacked up for some lane merge or to shut off a lane, and I had swerved as I woke up and I clipped one, and I didn't really think much of it, but I was so tired and exhausted I just kept driving. And when I pulled into my driveway, I looked under my tire and there it was lodged in there the whole time, so I was able to wrangle it out, and that's one of the dumbest things, if not the dumbest thing I've ever done for pro wrestling. Fall asleep behind the wheel and almost not make it back.
And that happens more often than you'd think.
Unfortunately.
But I'm glad you're still here.
Yeah.
So let's take it back to the very, very beginning, before you even stepped into training. What was it about wrestling that grabbed your attention in a way nothing else has? Was it the characters, the physicality, or was it something deeper?
It may have been something deeper. I had a connection with my older brother, 2 years older than me, where, even before we were really watching or had memories of watching, we had those little dolls that were made, the action figures that were kind of rubber and bendy, and we'd bring them to Hampton Beach and we'd bury them in the sand, and then we'd dig them up, and I still have them to this day. We got two forms of Hulk Hogan. I don't know why, but there's two. Mouth of the South Jimmy Hart. I have Junkyard Dog. The list goes on and on. George the Animal Steel. And I have early memories of watching the Monday Night Wars. I might have been about 8 or 9 years old at the time. We would flip the channels during commercial breaks. My older brother was a big Goldberg fan, Undertaker fan. I was a Kane fan. And I think, just having the connection early on with my older brother drew me in. As I got older, I kind of just grew out of it, and then reconnected with it in high school and in college. So after college, I just kind of decided to give it a try.
So do you remember, the exact first time you thought, I want to be a part of this, not just watch it anymore?
Yeah, it was a long time ago. I was 26. And, I had started formulating the plan in my head. I got obsessed with being a fan of the business, where I was watching the product, playing the video game, buying the merch, talking about it, eat, sleep, drinking pro wrestling. And so I started messaging some people in the business, just trying to get my foot in the door and figure out what was what. The big one for me was, in a similar story to the first one I told. I had gotten into a little bit of a car accident, nothing crazy, but it started making me think about what I wanted to do with my life, where I wanted to be in 5 or 10 years. And that's when I really made the decision to do it, after I got out of that car accident unscathed. It could have been a really bad one, but then I was like, do I really want to keep playing in these men's leagues basketball games that are just meaningless, or do I want to do something more meaningful? And so that was the driving force behind my decision to sign up at a wrestling school.
All right. So Did wrestling feel more like an escape for you, or was it more of like a direction that you knew you wanted to go in?
A little bit of both, probably more of an escape because that's what it was for me when I was a fan. No matter what I was going through in my life, I could go, whether it was an event in Worcester or Boston. Um, I would just get lost for about 2 or 3 hours, cheering for my favorite, booing my least favorite. You just tend to forget about, how crummy things can get in your personal life for a couple hours during that day. And when I decided to do it, there were many reasons why. One of those is to escape the harsh realities of your personal life and your business, your professional life, but also to give back to that same feeling. I want to give it to a fan in the crowd. If I can distract somebody from what's going on in their personal life for a couple minutes or a couple hours just by entertaining them, then I feel like I've accomplished that goal.
So, what do you think you were looking for in life when wrestling had found you?
Just another outlet, a creative outlet, a challenge. Having played college basketball for 4 years, there was a piece of me missing, like that competitive nature, to just go for something, strive for something, have some goals, set them, try to attain them, and reach them. I didn't really have anything. I was just kind of spinning my wheels, pun intended. But when I found wrestling and wrestling found me, it kind of saved me from going down, you know, uh, a dark path with alcohol and different things I was doing at the time, where I didn't like the way my life was heading. I was out of shape, overweight, just not the same guy I used to be. So had I not found wrestling at the time, who knows where I'd be now. I feel like wrestling has really helped me turn my life around in a lot more ways than one.
And considering that we're from around the same area, knowing how our area can be sometimes, especially when it comes to stuff like that, it can be a hard battle. So knowing you found something before you got too deep into anything, thank the Lord.
Yeah, definitely.
So looking back, what do you think that version of yourself like really needed?
Maybe just a friend. I'm a bit of a loner. Wrestling has really opened up a lot of doors for me in terms of networking. I've met a lot of people through the business. In business, I've met a lot of people that pay the ticket to come see us perform. These are the bonds that they're very strong. I mean, I've built some pretty good relationships with a fan base in Vermont, or a fan base. I have some people in Canada, um, some people in Massachusetts, starting to make some waves in Connecticut. So it's nice to branch out of central Massachusetts, meet some new people, share my stories, listen to their stories, make new connections, and network all over the place.
All right. So when you did start training, what was the hardest part about actually committing to it?
Just the toll that it took on your body. Like I had said, I wasn't in the same physical shape and condition that I was in when I was playing in college. So when I showed up at the doorstep of the training school, I wasn't, the weight that I needed to be at that was comfortable on my body. Um, Things that appeared easy for others were much harder for me. I'm usually bigger than everyone else, so um, I think that the physical toll that it took on my body, where you train super hard for maybe 3 hours one day, and then they want you back the next day to do it all over again. That was probably the hardest thing, was the toll that it took on my body, the recovery, and the consistency needed to keep going back day in, day out.
So before fully taking that first step, was there any hesitation before fully committing?
Maybe a little bit. The first time I went to my training school that I broke in with, I just did an observation class. Um, and that was very, very intimidating. I was taking notes because they instructed you to do so, but I also, wanted to be good at this. I didn't want to just do this just to be another face in the crowd. I wanted to excel and succeed and be successful. So I was taking notes, and like some of the things they were doing on the first day I was there just seemed like almost impossible. So it was very intimidating. I hope that answered the question.
No, yeah.
Definitely
So,
that.
what was there anything that you were more afraid of when you started, whether that be certain types of moves or just whether it be failure or embarrassment in general?
Not really the failure and embarrassment part. Like I do have that fear of failure. Don't get me wrong, but that's what you go to training for, and having that basketball background, like you go to practice so that you don't make the mistakes in the game when you're playing, and just like in wrestling, you go to training so that you can hone your craft and make the mistakes at training class. You don't make them in front of the live crowd. So, there's a little bit of that. But my number one fear, I guess, would have been falling on my head and injuring my head or my neck, because wrestling is one of those sports where you have to be able to not only protect the person you're in the ring with, but also protect yourself. So there was definitely that fear. Coming from basketball, you don't really have to worry about the other person guarding you. You just kind of go at them, and if they get hurt, and the next person subs in. In pro wrestling, if your opponent gets hurt, the match is over unless they can finish it. But you're really dependent on that other person. So I guess that was my biggest fear, was getting injured to the point that like I couldn't physically do it.
So, how did the people in your life around you react when you first said you were going to do this?
Oh, great question, Marissa. They were not supportive. They were very against it. My family had said to me, you're too old. I won't, divulge who, but I was told I wasn't going to ever amount to anything. I was never going to be a wrestler. I was wasting my time, wasting my money. My closest friends would make fun of me when I would tell them that's what I wanted to do. I would show them videos and say, see this right here? Like, this is what I want to do. And instead of like fully grasping it and understanding it, they would say, I don't know, I think that's stupid, or isn't that fake, or this, that, and the third. And that stinks to hear. But ironically enough, a couple years after those statements were made, I started getting booked on shows, and those people started coming around. And not everybody, but a good amount of the naysayers are finally like, wow, you really proved me wrong. And I don't think that's what I was trying to do. I was just trying to, I guess, prove myself right and trust the process. And it took me a while, but it happened.
So, what was the first moment that made it feel real to you, like you were officially like a wrestler?
This is a heck of a story. So I had a match that I won't waste too much time talking about, because we might mention it later. But it was in 2017. It did not get received well, and then I was scared to ever take another booking. But 3 years later, 3 years and like 2 months later, it felt real when, believe it or not, there was no crowd. This was during the pandemic, after quarantine, when the world started opening back up. There were these no audience tapings at your former stomping grounds, the XWA Event Center in West Warwick, Rhode Island. You used to frequent there, right?
Yep. I used to work concessions.
I didn't know that, but that's cool.
Yep.
I always wondered, because it was an awesome concession stand. I always wondered who was operating. You did a heck of a job.
I was say Mike stopped it, but I just worked it for the show.
I would have been there a lot, buying lots of the things there. But
everybody was.
I would bet so. basically in November of 2020, I had the opportunity to be involved in a squash match. It was the first time I was wrestling as Johnny Pierce. I faced magnificent Marco Santiago, and he defeated me in about 3 minutes. Um, so that's when it felt real, was like being back there in the locker room with the boys at XWA, seeing my name on the match card list, going out there through the curtain. Unfortunately, no fans, but you got to do what you got to do, and actually going out there and performing at that event center, which is someplace I had always wanted to perform at. So,
And I was there for a majority of those tapings, and I'm sad that I never got to see any of those matches come out, because some of those matches were really damn good.
I am not sad. Getting squashed is no fun. But I actually had to referee a little bit
I
of.
vaguely remember this.
Yeah, this is a funny story. Kylon King versus Flash, and it involved.
They all wrestled each other on that show.
It involved me taking a ref bump from Kylon, and he gave me a clothesline, and I went down and tried to make it look like I got hit by a truck. And I go back there, and I'm taking off my ref shirt, and someone says, "Hey, we need to reshoot." And I was like, "This is a rib, right? Like first I'm a ref, right? That felt like a rib, but I'm like, oh, okay, I guess this is the way you got to pay your dues, right? I'll go be a ref." So I go out there, I do it. They say we got to reshoot. I go out there a second time, same ref bump. I think it's over, and they say no, we got to reshoot again. So I did it a third time. Something about the camera dying or the memory card running out of memory. You know how it is. So 3 ref bumps from Kylon King and a squash match.
And Kylon doesn't hit soft. That
it's
hard.
funny. I had to tell him you could hit me harder, just because I have the size difference and probably one of the biggest refs to ever ref at XWA.
I was gonna say, between you and Nick Kachiri, here's another tall guy.
He's similar in size to me, so yeah, just like that.
So, what hit you the hardest once you had actually started getting bookings?
Oh man, what hit me the hardest? I would say, the traveling. I think the hardest part for me wasn't necessarily the distances and the time it took to get there, but like I got so wrapped up in like promoters not telling you where you are on the card until you get there. So I'm like freaking out about the call time or trying to get there earlier, and just the whole time anxiety in the car, just like, oh my God, I hope I'm not first. I hope I'm not second. I hope I'm, after an emission or right before a main event, whatever. Cause I was at a point in my career where I did need to take the proper amount of time to get to the venue, say hello, put my gear on, go over the match in like detail, like multiple times, and then be able to sink my teeth into it and go out there and do it because I was so green. Nowadays, it really don't matter to me if I'm opening in the mid card, closing. I don't stress about none of that anymore.
And I've worked a handful of shows myself. 9 times out of 10, call time can be like 5 o'clock. Most of them are there 10 minutes before bell time half the time.
Yeah, people have lives outside of the business. I know that's hard for some people in the business to understand, but it is what it is. It's not always. I don't think it's always people being late for the sake of being late. That's what I'll say.
So, what was something that you struggled with early on that maybe nobody else really saw?
I had a terrible reputation out the gates when I started getting booked, like heavily. People just weren't taking to me, and I wasn't really doing myself any favors. I had this big ego. I thought that I was better than I was, and I let people know. I talked a bunch of trash, and I don't know if I can swear on here. I won't. I talked a bunch of shit. I just kind of piped off at the mouth and walked around like my shit didn't stink. I was still, nice to people, saying hello, goodbye, how are you? You know what I mean? All those things. But if I didn't like you, I was going to let you know. And for the people that don't like me, I just didn't care. Um, so pretty early on, people kind of wrote me off because you know what they say about first impressions, you only get one. And I feel like I'm the king of bad first impressions. So what people don't see is, I mean, we all want to be liked, but I've really took the last few years and tried to adjust and um, adapt to the situations and reinvigorate, reshape my reputation. Um, so I'm doing much less shit talking. We all do it, but I don't do it as often. I don't do it nearly as often as I did when I first came in. I understand that I need to keep my ego in check, and that took a lot of work. And it's not all the way there, but it's much better than it used to be, which is probably why JC was so quick to say Johnny will do this. You know, there was a time. There was a time a couple years ago where he probably would have been reluctant to say like, "Oh, you don't want to put Johnny on there."
So, was there ever a moment where you felt like you didn't belong?
Yeah, definitely. The years that it took to finally get going on live shows, I would scratch and claw, and I would go to training school after training school, and I'd go to seminars, and I'd go to promotions, and I'd get there early, and I'd stay late, and I'd set up rings, and I'd break down rings, and I'd do everything that was asked of me, whether it was squash match on a taping, be a ref, manage a tag team faction for 8 months and no matches, right? So I did everything I could in those years, and every time I would get an opportunity, I was told, "Not yet. You're not ready. You're not good enough yet," and this, that, and the third. And even when I started getting booked, it was still pretty slow at the gates because I would let certain bookings go to my head. I remember one show in particular. I was on the show twice, where I won a match to then earn an opportunity into another match. So me being green, I'm like, oh, I'm definitely on the next show next month. Like, there's definitely a spot for me, and there wasn't. So instead of just sticking it out with that company, I went to the next company, and the first company didn't appreciate that, and then I got put in a bad spot with them. Which was connected to my training school, which put me in a bad spot with them. So just every mistake they tell you not to make, I've probably made twice.
So, how did you kind of push through the not belonging?
I did a lot of self-reflection. It's one of those things where you kind of just look yourself in the mirror and you think like, what do I really want? Is this what I really want? And then I have a pretty good support system where I'll bounce questions and ideas off of my family or my closest friends or my mentors, and I'll just be like, tell me if I'm wrong. Like, if I'm wrong, I can fix it. If I'm right, like, tell me what I have to do to excel or get better. And oftentimes if I was wrong, they would steer me in the right direction. I think I'm one to admit when I'm wrong, which more people need to do because there's a lot of people doing some nasty work out there, and it kind of goes unchecked and unnoticed. But like I said, everything I wasn't supposed to do, I've done, and I'm kind of glad that I did it early so I could fix it, and I don't have to do it this late in my career.
So, what is a lesson from that period that still sticks with you today?
A lesson from that period, I guess, trust your gut. Like, as discouraging as it was to hear you're not good enough yet, and to go to those same companies and relay that message, hey, I know you're interested in using me in your show, but I'm being told that I'm not ready yet. You think that you're gonna lose those opportunities. You think they're gonna stop asking you to get booked. But I guess, instead of listening to the naysayers, I would say trust your gut. If you really think you have something in life, whether it be in pro wrestling or some other avenue, give it your all and go for it. And that way you can at least say, I tried and gave it my best. If I was to stop right then and there when they were telling me no, then I wouldn't be able to give that advice because I would have quit. But I would say every time you feel like you want to quit, um, don't do that, and talk to some people and see if it is the right decision. If they don't think it is and you don't think it is, keep pushing forward, and you might be surprised where you end up. I always tell people the same advice when they ask me or if I just offer it. Things in pro wrestling happen when you least expect them to.
So, what is a moment where you finally felt like you were like finally getting it, where everything finally clicked and you were ready to actually go out and perform?
I had left one of the best training schools around for one of the worst training schools around. And that's when I started getting the reps that I felt I needed to fully understand the things I was struggling with. We had taken a trip to OVW. I was working through a nagging shoulder injury, and there were rumblings of me being in a rumble or a singles match to debut on OVW, this new character of mine, and that would have been tremendous. You know, who can say, "Hey, my debut match was on OVW"? The paperwork came in late by a couple minutes at midnight. So when I met Al Snow, that's what he said. "You're the guy who got his paperwork in late." I said, "Yep." There seems to be a pattern here of bad first impressions. Um, but it didn't happen for me. You know, it just the show went on. There was a pre-show and the main show, and I didn't get the match, and that's on me because they I guess they had one ready for me, and I was just nowhere to be found. But I didn't know at the time. I'm kind of glad it didn't happen because of my shoulder. I didn't think it was going to hold up, and I also didn't want to have the worst OVW match ever. But you know, shortly after that was the taping at XWA, and I forget the phrasing of the question, but I think I answered it right there.
That works for me.
Yeah, having
So,
that taping at XWA 2 months after not being on OVW.
so was there a match that changed your confidence going forward?
Oh, absolutely. I had the honor and the opportunity to share the ring with JDC a couple years before he hung him up. Um, and I was just starting to gain a little bit of traction um, because a few months prior or a month prior, I had wrestled Big Trouble Ben Bishop. So he was in a similar boat. Like I was a little greener than him, but he was like maybe a year or two further along. But having to be across the ring from someone who beat Chris Jericho at WrestleMania, um, I was very nervous. Um, they always tell you about the butterflies. I don't know if it was butterflies or something worse. I must have had butterflies on steroids in my stomach. But I kept, going over the match in my head. We went out there. It went really well, and I had family and friends in the crowd, and they told me how good I did, and I felt like I did good. And after that match, it gave me that boost of confidence that I needed to go further.
So, have you had a moment where you've surprised yourself in the ring?
A moment where I've surprised myself. Um, there's been moments. Um, yeah, I guess the one I can definitely say was the number one moment was working with Drew Gulak. Um, we didn't talk about much before the music hit, and I'm not the greatest at working on the fly, so that was a big challenge. So that was also nerve wracking, less nerve wracking than working with JDC years before that. But I had expected like a kind of different approach where we were going to have all these things ironed out and fleshed out, but he just kind of gave me the general basis like, hey, we're going to feel it out there. And what do you like to do? Oh, this, and this. Okay. When I go for this, you're going to go for that, and you're going to know. I'm like, oh, that's it? And he's like, yeah, that's it. And I was like, okay. And we went out there and had a really good championship match. And I actually scored a pinfall victory over him. And it felt good to challenge myself in ways that I hadn't been challenged before. So I hope that answers that question.
When did you start to feel like you were building something, not only like within yourself, but within the community or even the crowds or a promotion?
I guess November of last year, the best example I can give is when Green Mountain Wrestling teamed up with GCW from Green Mountains and me. When I heard that Green Mountain was coming back after being gone for X amount of years in the early 2000s, I knew who was starting it, so I reached out and I said, I'd like to be a part of this. And when we first started in 2023, we didn't have as many people as we do now for a fan base. So watching the fan base grow from this many chairs to this many chairs, and now we're starting to sell it out, and there's people standing in the back. And as of the next show in May, we have new seating on the balcony. Watching the growth and having been there from the first show to now has been pretty incredible and impressive. Being a part of it, being able to be a part of the community. They hired the company to do a wedding reception. So I got requested for one match at a wedding reception. And that was incredible. It was on a Monday in Vermont, and it was raining, but that's neither here nor there. Anytime we have a fair show, we like to bring our product around surrounding towns, and obviously we're based out of Barrie, Vermont, but that's our home base, and we travel around and do some fair shows. And they partnered up with like a MMA kind of company and did like a cage match. I wasn't a part of that, but I support the boys that were, and it was incredible. So just being able to be a part of Green Mountain's growth, and also being able to watch, sit back and watch, like, oh wow, we started with this many people, now we have this many people and a connection to GCW and all these other connections. It's incredible.
And what is a moment that you still think about when you need motivation?
I like to call them perfect days, and I know how silly that sounds, but every now and then I'll catch lightning in a bottle and have a perfect wrestling day. One of them was the Dirty Dango JDC match. It was in Leominster, Massachusetts. The company's name is World of Hurt. They did a show in Leominster. I'm not sure if it was for Make-A-Wish or another charity, but I invited everyone I could to come see. And after the show was over, my peers, my friends in the business, came back to my parents' house, where we had a nice meal from, when I name drop the restaurant, you get it. We ordered from the Boynton.
Yep.
So we had the Boynton get delivered, and I bought everybody the food because I was just in a giving mood, and we all sat down at my dinner table and ate and just kind of reminisced on the day, and everything that like could have gone wrong didn't. I think I'm kind of cursed, where like every time I get the biggest match in my career, I have some kind of injury. So going into the Fandango match, one of my knees wasn't cooperating, but it held up. So I was really stressed about that. And even before the show started, I had the massage gun going on it, thinking like I wasn't going to be able to do what I wanted to do out there. But yeah, all the things that could have gone wrong didn't. At the time, I think I was struggling to like remember parts of the matches, so I would get that like deer in the headlights look and be like, oh my god, where am I? I'm lost. But that didn't happen. No one got hurt, and everyone had a good time. So just those perfect wrestling days, they happen every so often, and when I get down, those are the ones I think about. Other times I think about the connections I've made with certain fans. There's a fan in Vermont who is a 9-year-old named Trinity going through chemo. And so I've, made a connection to her and her family. So every time I get to go up there and see them, I try to remember those little moments where I get to bond with the family and, talk to the husband and wife and, fool around with the daughter. We're wrestling after the show. She's throwing me into the chairs, beating me up, and I'm selling, "Where's security?" So those are the moments.
So, when did Johnny Pierce start to feel like a real identity instead of just a name?
Real identity instead of just a name. Well, since I had a tough time getting booked consistently, I would say I had debuted for NRG in a steel cage warfare game, war games match. And that's where the bookings started coming in after that. I first wrestled for APW when I won the Battle Royal and then was put in a tag match. After that, I got injured at training class, and it took 5 months to get another match, which was a Battle Royal. After that, nothing until August. So in August was the cage match for War Games. I got into the cage, and that's when it was like, wow, like I feel like exactly how Johnny Pierce would feel right now in this moment. I had done 8 months managing this trios group with a manager. So there was like, I want to say 5 of us. We were called the Cornerstone. It was Scott Levesque, Eric Dillon, Sean Candido, me, and Kevin Castro. And so I would just like intervene in their matches and cause a bunch of chaos. And then finally, the big payoff was the steel cage War Games match. And when I got in there and they locked the cage door, like it just felt like Johnny Pierce had arrived finally.
So, what parts of your personality show up in your wrestling?
I got this loud, booming voice that people either make fun of me for, whether it's, they're really making fun of me or, just joshing me. But it also can catch on with certain crowds where they can get behind it and it's like, "Ugh, Johnny Pierce," like that. Um, I'll take little sports references. For example, before every game, Kevin Garnett would bash his head into the underneath the basket on the padding. So I'll do that before my matches, which is an inspiration from him. And also, George the Animal Steel would like bite the pad and rip it open. I won't go that far, but every now and then I might bite the ropes, just to show like, whoa, there's something wrong with this guy. He might be a little crazy. Um, but yeah, just the things I say, my mannerisms. Um, I'd like to give off the appearance that, you know, there's a couple of screws loose with this dude. Can't take our eyes off this guy. What's he going to do next?
So, what are some things that you've had to improve on the most, and some things that you are still currently working on?
I think we touched on it earlier, like attitude. I've been working on that. It still needs a little bit of tweaking. I mean, I'm not just going to sit back comfortably and be like, "Oh yeah, my attitude's great. I've completely changed my attitude." It's a constant battle where I need to make sure when I'm talking to people in the business or decision makers or my peers that I don't come off. I have this stoic demeanor, I've been told. So I'm working on being less serious, being more friendly and joking with the boys in the back. I mean, you can ask a lot of these locker rooms. I feel like I'm well liked, but sometimes I think my ambition can get in the way where I might not say something correctly and could get taken out of context. Um, there's not much I can do about the way I look and my appearance, being 6'5", and I have muscles underneath the sweatshirt, and I'm dating someone in the business, so naturally I just walk into the room and I might rub people the wrong way without even doing anything. So I think it's just a little bit of give and take, trial and error. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of veterans and old timers that are helping people that are new in the business, get acclimated. We're kind of just thrown to the wolves in a lot of ways. I mean, there's other people that do have their hand held, and it's like, come this way, everything's going to be okay. I'm going to wipe your butt for you. Well, I haven't had that treatment. I've had the opposite treatment. So I'm just doing what I can with what I have. I'm not perfect. And the mistakes that I've made, I've been trying to fix them and fix them and fix them. And I think things are starting to turn around because, like I said, when I first started, it was a lot of people that weren't rooting for me to make it.
So what kind of wrestler are you trying to become, and what do you want the fans to feel when they watch your matches?
I want to be the best wrestler that I can be. I want to be a dominant force in not only New England, but in the surrounding areas. I've been trying to branch out more into New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey. I just did a trip down to North Carolina this weekend. So I am trying to branch out a little more out of New England. I want to win championships. I can pretty much comfortably tell you that there is a name that I've been called amongst my peers, King of the Shindies. I don't really care much for that because, people can say what they want about me. I have 5 championship titles. I'm hoping for more. And I just want to be the best that I can be at the companies that are willing to give me an opportunity. When the time comes, obviously that fear of failure we were talking about earlier. I don't want to go to the big companies and lay an egg and not be good enough, and then be told, oh, we'll let you know when we want you back, and then you don't get that call, you don't get that message. I want to be ready to go when it's time. I feel like I'm almost there. I'm starting to have some of the matches that I can hang my hat on and say, wow, I really gave everything I had. The second part of the question was, what do you want the fans to feel? They pay their good hard earned money to come see us perform. So I feel like I'm putting pressure on myself to make sure that they feel like they have their money's worth from my match. I want it to be they get their money's worth from everyone's match, but I can't control what other people do when they're in between the ropes. So when I'm calling a match with someone, obviously I'm the size and strength that I can pretty much do whatever I want with the opponent 9 out of 10 times. Very rarely do I wrestle someone that's stronger than me or bigger than me. So if I wanted to pick someone up and slam them, I probably could, right? But I'm more trying to cater to the fans that paid the money to see me, and I want to use the psychology that's easy for them to understand what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, when I'm doing it, right? Instead of just hitting move after move after move. So as long as the fans are entertained for the brief period of time that I get with them, from the minute my music hits till the bell is rung, I feel like that's a goal that I can accomplish when people come up to me after the show and they say, oh my God, your match, it was so entertaining. I'm so happy I came. You did such a good job. And I might say like, yeah, thanks. Or I might say, oh, I lost, so I must not have done that good, or whatever the heck I'm thinking at the time. But it's good to know that people feel like they're entertained thoroughly whenever I get a chance to go out there.
So do you feel pressure to prove yourself? And if you do, is it to prove something to yourself or to others?
When I first came into the business, I was so worried about being liked by everybody. So it was like a trepidatious approach. Like I wouldn't, Johnny, don't say that. Johnny, don't do that. And I would be like, okay, I won't say that. I won't do that. I'll ask for permission instead of forgiveness. I do put a lot of pressure on myself and hold myself accountable to these high standards, but I'm much less stressed about, you know, being liked. You know, people are either going to like you or they're not. I want to like the person I'm looking at in the mirror. If I don't like who I'm looking at in the mirror, then it's going to be hard for other people to like the person that they're looking at. So as long as I'm okay with myself, my closest friends, my family, um, that's all that really matters to me. Some people you just can't please no matter what. So, I'm working on myself. Everyone has flaws. And I think, complacency is not where I want to be. I want to be 1% better than I was yesterday, whether it be something I do in the ring, something I do out of the ring.
So, how do you handle expectations that come with getting better?
It's a mixed bag, I won't go into full detail, but one of my training schools when I first got there said I no sold too much. And so, I cleared the air. There was a miscommunication. I fixed it. A couple years later at the same training school, they said I sold too much. So I try to take things with a grain of salt, everyone always says flavors of ice cream. There's this many flavors of ice cream. It's all these different flavors of ice cream. For me, being my size, I think my age is starting to play a part, but definitely my size. It's harder than people think it is to be a big guy in today's professional wrestling. So everyone thinks they know, like the secret, right? Everyone's always like, you should do this or you should do that. Like, you need to always be up on your feet and like don't sell anybody's shit and like this and that. Some of the things I say are pretty wild and out of pocket. The things I hear, excuse me, are pretty wild and out of pocket at times. But what the young kids are always saying something about crashing out, and every time I feel like I'm going to crash out, I ask myself like, is it worth doing that? Is it worth blowing my top and yelling and screaming and getting into a yelling argument in front of all these people? And oftentimes it's no. Early on in my career, I would just start, speaking my mind and telling everybody what I thought was wrong, or this needs to be fixed, or I need to be, in this position or that position. Now I'm kind of just taking things as they come. If a promoter gives me a crazy assignment and they say, I don't know if you can pull that off, let me know if you can, and let me know if you think this is stupid. I'm going to tell them, no, let me see what I can do. Let me try this, right? And so it's just getting out of that comfort zone, realizing that the moment is bigger than yourself.
So, has there ever been a moment in your career where you felt like you weren't progressing fast enough, or where there was just like maybe a plateau in bookings and you kind of felt like you were being stagnant?
Recently, that happened. You probably don't know this, and I can't blame you for not knowing this, but most people don't know this. I was on the GCW show, which is great, and I can pat myself on the back, and people can tell me like, "Oh, that was so awesome! You were on the show." Unless you were there in person or watching it on Triller or happen to stalk my pages, whether it be Instagram, whatever it is, you wouldn't know because I was on the opening match. It was a scramble. I wasn't advertised to be there, and a lot of my peers were. So I was upset. And candidly speaking with you, I was the last pick from Green Mountain. So I would say that I still have a chip on my shoulder, not in the negative way, like, oh, F that, F everybody, F this person, F that person. More as like, whenever they come back around, my goal is to be featured in a match that gets promoted, whether it be singles, tag, you name it. I really feel strongly that I need to be pushed as like, come see Johnny Pierce at this crossover show in Vermont. So at the start of the year, bookings were really slow, and I do know that like most companies slow down during the holidays, but it did, like there were shows running, right? There were shows running, and I didn't have many bookings. So having been on GCW, thinking that that was going to be the thing to gain me the traction that I felt I needed, and then having my schedule actually slow down instead of pick up, that was pretty debilitating at the start of the year. But I said to myself, be patient. The opportunities are coming in your pipeline, and just sink your teeth into those and try to get into a good physical shape with weightlifting, cardio, yoga, dieting, so that when the time comes and your bookings pick up, you'll be ready to go instead of sitting around feeling bad for yourself.
So outside of like sticking with your nutrition and your fitness, what is some other things that keep you locked in when times like this happen, when things slow down for you?
I had an incident where I didn't have my gear on and my music hit. So I was lacing up my boots and my music was playing, and I did not think much of it. I was like, oh, they're just testing the speakers and there's no way this is my match. And I looked up from tying my boots, and everyone in Gorilla was like, are you going to go out there? And I was like, oh shit, I don't even have my boots tied up. So that was rough. But I think the best way I can answer that question is when I go through my process, and now, ever since that happened, I make sure I'm in my gear. And if I've called a little bit of the match before putting my gear on, like I won't call the full match until I'm geared up. And that's just, if someone's trying to call something to me and I haven't even put my boots on, I respectfully tell them like, hey, this is great. These are all great ideas, but I really can't wrap my head around it until I get in my gear, because I'm not going to make that mistake again. So once everything is on and I'm in, I got my gear on and I can sink my teeth into the match, that's when I take the time to like get my teeth, sink my teeth into what we're about to do. And once I can fully grasp it, that makes things a whole heck of a lot easier on me.
So what is your mindset when things aren't going your way?
It's a dark place to be. I would say it's not a good mindset to have. Wrestling is one of those things, I'm sure you've heard. It's just like it's this roller coaster of emotions, the highs and the lows, and when the adrenaline wears off, and if things aren't going my way, I can be pretty grumpy. I try to remind myself that as much as I love pro wrestling and as important as it is, there is a much bigger picture out there. I don't know if a lot of people in the business fully grasp that yet. A lot of the younger wrestlers are just gung ho on pro wrestling and they have nothing else going on. Just pro wrestling, pro wrestling, pro wrestling. And that's great. But we all need to understand that there's a much bigger picture out there, and wrestling is a part of it, but we need to think outside the box here. So I try to remind myself, I love wrestling, but life it's so much bigger than pro wrestling. There's a whole world out there of possibilities. So if something doesn't go well for me in a pro wrestling match, it does stink. But at the end of the day, it's just a pro wrestling match.
Absolutely. So looking towards the future, what are some goals that you are chasing right now in your career?
Without getting into the specifics of it all, I'd like to attain as many championships as I can while holding the ones that I currently have. It's a real catch-22. Mercedes Moné did it, so I'm just trying to follow in her footsteps in a way. Once the belts started piling up, I was like, I might as well just go for as many as I can at the same time.
I feel like it's a Boston thing.
Yeah, it might be. It might be. Who knows? Obviously, we touched on it earlier. Whenever I can get back onto GCW, I feel like I need to have more of a showcase than I had in a scramble match, where I did okay, I did well, but you could hear it on the podcast. They were like, "We want to see more out of Johnny Pierce." And it's like I want to give them more, So that's a goal. I'd like to wrestle more for Limitless Wrestling. I'd like to debut for Wrestling Open and beyond. So there's still a few things I like to do up here in New England in the Northeast. Um, and I ultimately, before it's too late and I'm too old, would like to get signed to a television contracted company. More and more opportunities. Something that seemed far-fetched when I first started is a lot more attainable now with all these different avenues. So, obviously the goal would be WWE. That's a dream job. But if that doesn't happen and some other company takes a chance on me, it'd be wonderful to just be on TV wrestling under a contract.
So, what does progress look like for you today?
Progress for me today looks like I can watch a recent match and a match from maybe a few months ago or a year ago and just see the progression of whether it be, how I sold something or just how we transitioned from one thing to the next, if it was smooth, if it was wonky, little things like that, like footwork or just like the ebbs and flows of the match, falsies, if there's too many of those. I used to call WrestleMania where I just say, oh, boom, 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 boom. And now I'm starting to learn that less is more. Every time I pick some up and slam them down and they kick out, I look kind of dumb because, sometimes my moves look a little bit more impactful than the next person's. So I'm trying to tweak my approach every time I have this match or that match. What moves am I going to use? What moves am I not going to use? What am I going to agree to take? What am I not going to agree to take? It's just been a lot of back and forth. Things I used to say no to, I was pretty stubborn and hard-headed. I'm trying to be more open to. So funny story is, I don't know if you know the Lost Boys. You do? Miles Penn had asked me to give me an exploder suplex when I was first starting out. And I said, no. I said, look at me, man. I'm like twice your size. You're not giving me that. And I was working with him a couple weeks ago. And when I first saw him, I said, you know what today is? And he goes, what? And I go, it's the day you're going to give me an exploder suplex. And he smiled. So, yeah.
So, what kind of legacy do you want to build when everything is said and done?
I want to leave the business better than when I found it. I want to be known for more than a wrestler. I know that's kind of a complicated answer, but I can elaborate. When I'm done with wrestling, I think I do want to do some sort of commentary or something involved in the business. But I'm talking about when people look back on my wrestling career, I don't want them to remember me just for, oh, wow, he was cool in between the ropes. Like he did cool shit. I want to be known for a locker room leader, someone people could go to when they needed advice, suggestions, feedback, anything, literally anything. I tell my buddies that I've made over the years, if you need somebody to talk to, my phone, it works both ways, right? You want to text me any time of the day or night, regardless of whatever you're going through. I'd rather you message me than do something stupid. Maybe I can talk you out of it. I've been through a lot of life experiences. I'm 36 years old. I've made every mistake in the business, if not once, twice. So I'm trying to give back in little ways. Like when I'd be at training schools, I wouldn't just show up and train. Like I tried to get there early, help some of the younger guys or people brand new in the business. I'd stay late, work with people on promos or something they're struggling with. And I think if there's someone I could shout out real quick that did that for me, and maybe that's why I do that the way I do it, is Sean Vegan Keegan.
Love him. Love him.
Nicest person I've ever known. When I first started out, I would struggle with two moves. It was an arm drag and a sunset flip. And I have memories in 2018 of Sean taking time out of his day to stay behind with me and try to get me to get the sunset flip down, which I was unsuccessful at because I got in my head. And I tell him to this day, like, I appreciate him doing that. So maybe there's a little bit of that in me where I want to pay it forward, give back. So if people will look back on my career, I hope it's not just for the wrestling accolades that I've been able to attain, and maybe getting a New England Pro Wrestling Independent Hall of Fame vote or two would be nice.
All right. So that is all the beefy questions I got for you. Now
Beefy.
it's time for the really important ones.
All right, fire away.
So you wake up tomorrow and you find out you are famous for something completely unrelated to wrestling. What is it for?
The Boston Celtics have decided to give a 10-day contract to a former washed-up Division III Johnny Pierce. That's what.
So Division III. What college did you play for, if you don't mind me asking?
Clark University in Worcester.
All right. Damn, I didn't know we were D3.
Yeah.
All right. So you are stuck in a group chat with 3 fictional characters forever. Who are the 3 characters in it, and who is the most annoying?
Fictional characters?
Yep.
3 of them, and who's the most annoying? Big South Park fan, so I'll have to say Randy Marsh. I'd like to be in a group chat with Randy Marsh. He says really funny things. Fictional. I'm a big fan of Assassin's Creed, the video game, so any one of those people that had the ancestors that they would strap themselves into the Animus and go be their ancestor, I'd love to have them in a group chat. Crash Bandicoot, perhaps. A big Crash Bandicoot guy. He'd probably be the most annoying. He's got the squeaky voice and the mask that goes ooga booga. So
I feel like he also kind of gives off like crackhead energy too.
Yeah. Crash would be the most annoying, but those are my 3 for now.
So if your life had a warning label, what would it say?
Slippery when wet. No, I'm kidding.
Jesus Christ.
I make this joke. I might make some merch out of this, but you know the logo of the person diving into the shallow end, and it says like "Don't do this" with the line through it, and it's like them just face planting with their neck all snapped. And it's like, please don't dive in the shallow end. I think that's my warning label, because I might have taken that approach in pro wrestling where I dove into the shallow end, even though people were like, don't do that. And I was like, wee. So, that's the one.
All right. You can only eat food from one place for a full year. Where are you going?
I hope this gets me a sponsorship or something, but I order Nutrimeals. They're a meal delivery service. They're healthy meals. I got in the best shape of my life a couple of years ago, and that's all I was eating. So every now and then when they send me a discount code and I have the necessary funds, I'm pretty much spending the same amount when I go to the grocery store, and then you have to prepare the food. So I'm always on the go. They send me the meals. I zap them in the microwave for 3 minutes, and any ones I don't eat go in the freezer. And when I'm traveling, it's good to just throw them in a cooler and try to find the microwave, whether it be at the B&B, the hotel, or if I have to stop somewhere else, or maybe I'm lucky and the venue's got one. But yeah, that would be specifically the Mediterranean chicken bowl. Yeah.
All right. You are dropped into a reality show tomorrow. You can pick anyone you want, but what one do you think you have the best chance at winning?
It wouldn't. I can tell you which one it wouldn't be real quick. Fear Factor. I'd be out of that real quick.
Yep.
As soon as they have me lay down with the bugs and the spiders,
Yeah, that's my spot too.
F that. Scorpions and no thank you. Snakes, I'm good.
I'm petrified of heights, but like,
yeah.
If the second like I'm up there and I'm moving, I'm like, okay, it's when I have to come down that's the problem.
Mm-hmm. I don't think I would do well on like Survivor, so that's another one. But I was a big Real World fan when I was growing up. I'm not trying to like, oh, because the Miz was on there, it's not like that. I think I would do well on a show like that. And I never watched Jersey Shore. I don't think I would do well on Jersey Shore, but like Real World, where you're not just surrounded by New Jersey people. I don't know if you've ever seen the South Park episode about New Jersey, but that one's funny.
I'm like, even just then, like watching Jersey Shore, because I think I was maybe in high school or like freshman, sophomore year when that had came out, maybe even in 8th grade still.
So yesterday for you.
I'm not that much younger than you.
Yeah. Anyway, the
But,
Real
like,
World will be mine. Yeah.
Yeah, I just remember in Jersey Shore, like almost every episode somebody was in a fight.
Yeah, so I would not do well in that environment. Believe it or not, despite this character that I've come up with that seems like he just wants to scrap with everybody, I'm a nonviolent kind of guy. I think having pro wrestling as an outlet to get out some bottled up aggression is good for me because I can do it in a safe manner. I take pride in the fact that I've never really injured anyone. There might be a few people that say, "Oh, you knocked the wind out of me," or "I have a bruised rib," or whatever. I've heard a few different things, but no one's ever said, "Hey, you effed me up and I can't go to work tomorrow. I'm hurt or I'm injured." Everyone's just got a couple bumps and bruises, and yeah, I like to lay it in thick, so safe and snug, right?
All right, last one. What is something about you that fans would only know or understand if they spent a full day with you?
You have to ask that. All right, this is not going to air, right?
Oh, it's totally live right now.
I'm kidding. I'm a big softie. I'm a teddy bear. I don't care who knows it. The problem that I have in pro wrestling is that people don't take the time to get to know me, and it's a two-way street. I could probably do a better job of that, of being more approachable, but like it is what it is. So if someone takes the time to get to know me, they would know that. The other issue is that I have this character that comes off as an asshole, and sometimes people think that that's the real me. And I'm really good at playing an asshole character, but if you don't separate the two, which was hard for me to do when I first got into the business, and now after years of, revamping and, trying to figure out what's going on, how I got to tweak this, I have it pretty fleshed out, the difference between who I am behind the scenes and who I am when the bright lights are on. If you're taking me at face value, like, oh, I don't like that Johnny Pierce guy, that's too damn bad. You're not supposed to like me when I'm a heel. I'm starting to do more babyface work, so we'll see what happens with that. But there is a different side of me that people don't get to see, and I'm a bit of a teddy bear. I'm a softie. I cried during sad movies or whatever. If there's a song that comes on that tugs at the heartstrings, you name it. I like dogs. I play with my dog. I like to be a family man. If somebody in my family needs something, I try to put down what I'm doing immediately and help them. And with my close friends, if they need a ride, I try to give them a ride. Or if they want to borrow my car, I've given people the clothes off my back. I've done things that people don't talk about, so now I have to talk about them. Like, I'm not as bad as people think I am, but it is what it is, and here we are now. Obviously, you've got me on your show, so I'm not that bad. But yeah, great questions. I think fans are starting to figure it out. I think the more they talk to me, you're not really a big mean guy, are you? And I'm like, don't tell anybody.
All right, so we have reached the last segment of my show that I like to call Promo Roulette.
Oh gosh, what is this?
All right, everybody loves that music, and I do
Promo Roulette.
It's great. So, Promo Roulette is a segment where you get to shoot a promo. Previously, it was on random items, but people were kind of having a bit of a hard time with that, so I changed it to random characters picked by the previous week's guest. So
Who was the previous week's guest?
Last week we had Kylon King.
Yes, let's go.
And he chose Mordecai and Rigby from the regular show for you.
I don't even know who that is.
I don't really know either.
I'm aging myself. That has to be some
fine.
kind of cartoon or...
Let's Google it. That's fine.
Yeah, that's good. They got the Google machine. So you said Mordecai and Rigby?
Yeah.
I'm going to have a talk with Kai.
So it looks like it's a raccoon and a blue jay from the regular show.
Is that on the Cartoon Network or something like that?
Yeah, it's on Cartoon Network. Here, let's share my...
Oh, boy. All right. So Cartoon Network, Mordecai and who?
Mordecai and Rigby. So
Rigby.
These guys right here, the
raccoon and a blue jay.
Yep.
Raccoon and a blue jay. Which one's which?
Mordecai is the blue jay and Rigby is the raccoon.
All right, I'm going to try to summarize this before we start this. So I got Mordecai. Which one is he?
The blue jay.
Mordecai the blue jay, Rigby the raccoon. The name of the show is the
regular show.
The regular show, and it's on Cartoon Network. Mordecai the blue jay, Rigby the raccoon, Cartoon Network, the regular show.
They're known for shirking responsibilities. That makes no sense to me, so I'm gonna ignore that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe just being procrastinators.
They're often turned to mundane tasks into surreal, dangerous adventures, usually causing problems that infuriate their boss. All right, so they sound like the asshole
they get into trouble and hijinks. It's just a regular show. Yeah, Mordecai and Rigby. Okay.
Whenever you are ready.
I'm ready. So we got Mordecai, the blue jay. We got Rigby the raccoon, the regular show on Cartoon Network. You guys have fans. You guys are known somewhat. I mean, just ask my buddy Kylon King. He raves about you guys. He tells Marissa and me, I flip my TV channel. I click. I don't like what's on my screen, and I end up on the Cartoon Network. It's the regular show with Mordecai the blue jay and Rigby the raccoon, and I love it. He loves watching it. And I ask him, Kylon, what do you like about it? He says, what's there not to like about it? These two get into crazy adventures and hijinks, and there's chaos, and they're procrastinators. And honestly, Johnny, I talked to them, and you've got a match with them coming up this Saturday in Worcester at Clark University. So let me send a message to Mordecai the blue jay, Rigby the raccoon from the regular show. You know what's irregular, you two? This handicap match. This handicap match where it's two of you against one of me. You're going to wish that there were four of you to face one of me. When I'm done with you, you're not going to know what channel you're on. You're not going to know which one of you is a blue jay and a raccoon. When I'm done with you, Mordecai is going to be the raccoon, and Rigby is going to be the blue jay. And when you wake up, your television show is going to be canceled off the air. My name's Johnny Pierce, and that's the cold hard truth, baby.
All right, well, there we go. So I did tell you who our next guest is, but that is for not next week, the week after. So if you do remember who that is, that could give you a little bit of insight, but you get to pick a character for the next guest.
Remind me, I forgot, and I'm old. I have to write things down.
So I'm not announcing it until next week, so it'll message you real quick.
Message me real quick. Do 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 do.
Da 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 da. There we go.
She's typing. I get to pick the topic?
You get to pick the character.
The character. Now, is he coming in as himself or this new character he's created?
Oh, I didn't even know he had a new character.
Yeah, you're going to have to ask him about that. It's a clown. Okay. He's a clown character.
So whichever you think suits best.
All right, so I get to pick the character. I know. I have to do a little Google searching myself so I don't botch this, but this is the character that your next guest is going to cut the promo on. I know the name of the show, so maybe you can help me so I can, because I got this slow computer.
Okay.
The Simpsons.
Okay.
Is it Krusty the Clown?
Yep.
That's the one.
Krusty the Clown.
Your guest next week is going to cut a promo on Krusty the Clown from The Simpsons, courtesy of me.
All right. So next week we are having an April Fool's special episode. So there will not be any guests as of yet, but you never know who could pop up. It's April Fool's Day. You never know what's going to happen next week. So that is what we have in store for next week. And one last thing to finally announce. We now have merch.
Whoa.
So we have t-shirts and hoodies. T-shirts are $20 plus shipping. Or if you happen to see me, catch me around or you're local, I can drop that off for you. And the hoodies are $45. Same deal with that, plus shipping, or I can drop it off for you. But that is everything we have for you this week. Thank you so much to Johnny for joining us. And now would be the time to drop where we can find you at some upcoming shows, or if you're not in our area, where we can find you on social media.
I'll start with some shows. Middleborough Mania comes to Middleborough High School, I believe, this Friday, for Top Rope Promotions. So I'll be there. In April, I'll be at Waterbury, Connecticut for Test Strength's Lone Survivor. Lucky Pro Wrestling Mayhem show on April 10th in Leominster. And if you need to know where else I'll be, you can just follow me on socials. I know you just plugged your merch. I'll plug mine. Pro Wrestling Tees, Johnny Pierce. In my opinion, I got the best merch in the game, and that's bar none. So go find something you like because it's on there. And I'm constantly adding new. I got a bit of an addiction to T-shirts, so it's a little chaotic on that site. But you'll find something you like, and if not, message me and I'll create something that you do. Every social media platform, we got Facebook, Instagram, X. TikTok, and I think Snapchat or whatever. Johnny Pierce, you'll search, you'll find me. And that's pretty much that.
Alrighty.
YouTube too.
YouTube.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that is everything that we have for you guys this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. And we will be back next week with that special April Fool's Edition episode of Smoke and Meteoras.
Make sure y'all check that out. Marissa, thank you for having me on Smoke and Meteoras podcast.
Of course, man. Thank you again and have a good night, everybody.